people. The what? Oh, what is this? There it goes. What do we have here?
I'm ready to list every word she says.
I think Kaylee is the one doing the Zoom.
Well, we went out for lunch. It's your birthday.
Ready? Okay, you ready, everybody? Well, stop all the noise. Okay, thank you all for coming. This is going to be very exciting. I've had to censor some of it. Not really. You can take your mask off up here. You can see now who it is. Okay, well, you all know, I'm sure, who Cindy is. And we'll start with telling us how life began.
Okay, before I do that, I first want us to sing happy birthday to Marguerite. It's Marguerite's birthday today. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Marguerite. Happy birthday to you. She told me she was thinking about what to do for her birthday, and it was either coming here or going to a Disney movie. So I went out over Snow White.
So there isn't that much difference, is there?
The second thing I want to do before I answer Kate's question is this morning at meditation group, we were talking about stop, breathe, and appreciate. And this is a technique, especially when you might feel agitated or anxious or angry. And for me, doing this today is a bit anxiety producing. I just have to say. So Phyllis reminded me of my own words. Stop. I'm stopping. I'm taking a deep breath. And I am appreciating this moment being here with all of you. Okay, how did my life start? So this is another thing. Kate said, oh, you can bring a bunch of pictures. I only brought one that I'm going to pass around because
Which I couldn't censor. She wouldn't show it to me.
it's true. So this is my grandparents' farm. And I'm just gonna, Angela, if I can pass this around. This, their farmhouse. We don't know when this picture was taken. My grandparents, my father's parents lived in Albemarle County, Virginia, at the foot of the Blue Ridge Mountains. And everything about who I am has come from my experience with my family there. This house actually predated Monticello. It was built in 1760. And we only found that out after my grandmother was too old to stay there and sold the farm. A wealthy family bought the farm. We thought they were going to take the house down. They built their own 3-story home. And then they started poking around my grandmother's farmhouse and brought in experts on historical building. And they discovered that it was built in 1760, and they had the financial resources to totally redo the house in the way that it was in 1760. And it's now on the National Register of Historic Places. It's in Free Union, Virginia, Albemarle County. My grandmother actually was born in Mickey Tavern. Have any of you visited Monticello? Yeah, on the way up to Monticello is Mickey Tavern. But my great grandparents bought it and lived in it when it was on the other side of the county. And the Historical Society then bought Mickey Tavern and moved it so it would be easier for visitors to see that. The point of this Mickey Tavern, this farmhouse that the picture is coming around, is my dad's family lived in Albemarle County. They've lived there for over 250 years. And they were very poor, they were uneducated, and they were amazing people in my upbringing. Colorful people. Now, this is something else that Kate said. You have to, when you talk, you have to be colorful because we have to keep everybody's attention.
Funny, I don't remember that.
You did. So I'm trying to be colorful.
I have no doubt.
So
what kind of work did they do?
they were farmers, subsistence farmers. My grandfather actually went to Washington, D.C. and worked on building the interiors of milk trucks in order to bring more money in. And so my dad and his brother were raised basically by their mother while their father was away making money.
And what is subsistence farming?
They barely got by. Yeah,
Okay.
they were very poor. And as in any family, there were, well, in the church, we talk about saints and sinners. There was just this whole, all kinds of people, okay? So my grandmother was very pious. She never cut her hair in her whole life because she believed that that was what she should do as a faithful Brethren woman. And I can remember her, she would every morning get up, and it was very, very long, and she would just make it into a bun at the base of her neck. Her brother, and this is a true story, when her brother died, my dad was there at the funeral. His wife came, stood by the casket, and there was another woman on the other side of the casket, which was the other wife. This family had this whole range, like any family, and characters. My great uncle Carol wore overalls every day of his life. And in fact, I have 4 pair of overalls that I wear. I never wear them to work, and Kate tried to get me to wear them today. I didn't think it was exactly professional, so I did not. But Uncle Carol would go fishing with a bamboo pole, and when he would catch fish, he would put them still moving in the front pocket of his overalls. Yeah. These are my family. But my grandmother especially was really important to her. And I named my daughter for my grandmother for that reason. And my daughter has given one of her children my grandmother's maiden name as a middle name. And this kind of continuity is important to me. I am here because of these people who helped me to be here. But my grandmother at her farmhouse, she did have a television. It didn't work. So we would, even as children, we would build a fire in the fireplace and play checkers and sometimes just sit. And I think that that sense of quiet and stillness really has impacted me. It's who I am, who I know myself to be. And my dad got moved around. I didn't stay in that area as I was growing up. But when I went to college, I went back there because I went to the University of Virginia, and my grandmother would pick me up on weekends, me and my laundry, and take us back to her house. And it was a refuge. All the parties in the dorm, all the noise, all the confusion, go to her house, have a fire in the fireplace, and just be. So that's where I come from.
And your parents.
And my parents, yes, yes.
And do you want to say a little more about school?
About school.
About education.
Okay, well, like I said, I went to the University of Virginia, which people call Mr. Jefferson's University. And I majored in English literature. While I was there, I did an internship on the pediatric ward of the University of Virginia Hospital. I think that's where the kind of chaplaincy work began. I'm still really impacted by one of the children, and he wasn't much younger than I was 18 at the time. He was 15. His name was Timothy Paget. He had been paralyzed since birth. And I walked in his room not knowing him, and he had a baseball bat. And he threatened me with this baseball bat. And I don't know exactly how, but I stood far enough away that he couldn't get me with that baseball bat. And we started talking, and we ended up developing a very close relationship. And that was an important one for me because I have spent many, many, many years visiting people in the hospital and being with a lot of people in a lot of pain. But that time with him taught me also about how to be. I couldn't help him walk, but he helped me learn how to just be with him in the midst of what he was dealing with.
Is that what inspired you to do, or is that one of the things that inspired you to do the work you do? Or what did?
What inspired me? I don't honestly know. The earliest memory I have about ministry, I was in 7th grade, and Carol Wright and I were doing our project, which was President's Wives, and we were cutting out dresses for President's Wives. All right. And we started talking about, what do you want to be when you grow up? And for whatever reason, I told her I thought I wanted to be a pastor. And she laughed at me because neither of us had ever met a woman pastor before. I don't really know where it came from, but it just was there and has been there ever since, I guess.
Okay. Is this a good time to tell about your brothers?
Yes, sure. I have 2 brothers. Dan, who works for Purdue Chickens. So he His work is deciding how many people are going to buy chicken at the grocery store and then to kill that many chickens.
And where is this?
So he has been in Salisbury, Maryland. That's where Purdue's headquarters. He just recently moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. They built a house and he's working remotely. My other brother, Billy, lives in North Carolina. He is in the music industry, and I was thinking about him a lot on Sunday because he was living in Manhattan, 3 blocks away from the World Trade Towers when 9/11 happened. And even though it's been 21 years ago, I can still so vividly remember that day because we couldn't get a hold of him. And they took the subways in and out of the trade towers all the time. And so I remember I was in the church I was serving at the time, standing there watching the news and pressing speed dial over and over and over again. And it wasn't until that afternoon that we finally heard from him. And he and his wife made their way out on foot. So, but Billy and I are particularly close. He's 9 years younger than I am. And so I think I probably mothered him a bit as a child, and that continues.
But you don't see him if he's back there.
I don't see him a lot. We talk a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Let's get to your husband. Where did you meet your husband?
I met my husband at a church potluck.
How's that for a potluck catch, huh?
It was a Thanksgiving potluck. So he talks about meeting turkey at that potluck. Yes.
Sounds pretty foul.
It sounds foul. We did not plan this ahead of time. You can tell that. Yes, so we met at a church potluck in November. We got engaged in February. We were married in August. The following August, we packed up everything we owned and drove from Iowa to North Carolina, where I started seminary. He started a PhD program, and I was 6.5 months pregnant.
And tell about
that.
Tell about your labor.
I went into labor in the Divinity School library.
There must be a comment for that. I can't think of it.
I did. Luckily, Scott, the engineering department at Duke is just across the parking lot. And so he was able to get to me quick enough. We drove, I don't know what we were thinking. We drove to the doctor's office and it was 4:59 and I was very close to delivering a child, and they said, you have to get out of here right this minute. And so I barely made it to the hospital and then had our daughter, but not in the seminary. Not
in the library. No. That would have been a good story. What kind of work does your husband do?
He is an electrical engineer. And so we have a kind of marriage. Some of you have this too, or have, because he's very methodical and I'm poetic, and we have to work at it.
Explain that a little more.
So he's systematic. Well, here, I'll talk about it this way. Scott and I are building a camper right now. I've told some of you about this. It's a teardrop shape camper, and he has all the skill, and I have the ability to hold tools in my overalls that I mentioned earlier.
I wish we had a picture of this.
And so for him, talking about feelings, that's not exactly it, but he's learned. And for me, knowing how things work, I've learned. And so we've been married for 36 years and we've made it work.
And you have a daughter.
have a daughter who will be 35 in November. Ginny is a mother. She has 3 children and is expecting her 4th. We just found out. So she is an attorney. She has just, in addition to having 3 kids, being pregnant with another, she has just started a law firm in the Twin Cities. And she has a puppy. So we go there as much as we can to try to help her. Her husband, Spencer, is amazing. He's also an attorney, but he has a lower stress job so that he can do more of the child pickup and that kind of thing.
So 4 children and a puppy.
Yes, and a law firm.
Okay.
What are the names of the children? Ellie, Julius, and Lewin. And I can't tell you, I know what they're thinking about for the 4th, but I can't tell you.
What
Because
about
we're not allowed to.
what about the puppy?
The puppy is Ruby.
Okay.
And this and all of the kids. So this is actually interesting too. Ginny kept her maiden name, so she's McCalmont, and her husband's name is Spencer Higgins, and every other child they've given the different last name. So it's Eleanor McCalmont, Julius Higgins, Lewin McCalmont, and now this one will be a Higgins. And so they had to have an even number or it wouldn't have worked out. So very excellent question, Angela. So Eleanor Harder McCalmont, so was given Ginny's, our family name, and then a woman's maiden name from the other side of the family. Yes.
Sure
so
sounds complicated.
she has a bit of her engineer father in her. So Julius Higgins, Julius has my grandmother's maiden name, Via. So it's Julius Via Higgins. I know that's complicated. It's the way that they've done it.
Is this time for the clowns?
Sure, bring in the clowns.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kate wants to shift me into talking about
No.
my work. Yeah, no, this is good. So she wanted me to tell you a funny story. So I've served 2 churches. I then worked for the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which is how I know Sharon, and then came here. So the first church I served was in Peyton, Iowa, a town of 250 people. I was there for 3 years. And then I was in Ames, Iowa at Collegiate United Methodist Church for 12 years. And it was at Collegiate that I got a phone call one day. And I said, hello. And there was this breathing, just somebody on the phone. And then the voice said, we have the clown. And I mean, as a pastor, you get some unusual phone calls, but this was unusual, more so than usual. And so I said, what are you talking about? And they said, meet us. And then they said this parking lot that was about half a mile from the church. And this was at night that I got this phone call. So Scott would have killed me. My husband would have killed me if he knew. I was just like, what is going on? So I drove over to this parking lot and I sat out there trying to figure out and I didn't see anything. And all of a sudden I heard this whack and running feet. And I got out of the car and there was this wood cutout of a clown. Well, it was the wood cutout of the clown that had been in the front of the church for the preschool that the church had. And they had taken it and held it hostage. And there it was. I guess they started feeling guilty. So I had to heft this giant clown into my car. It wouldn't even fit. Luckily, I had a moon roof and I got the clown's head sticking up out of the car. and drove back to the church. That's my clown story.
Wish we had pictures. How I wish. But any, in the work that you do, any challenges? I mean, you have a lot of humorous stories too. So do you have anything that you could tell us about?
Yeah, I debated about when Kate and I talked about this, and I'm just going to tell you the truth.
We've heard that.
So pastors experience secondhand trauma, especially in the work in Ames, but starting in the church, the small church, rural church that I served. I was involved in a situation of domestic violence, another situation of incest. At the church in Ames, I had to tell an 18-year-old that his father had just killed his mother. I was with a grandson who found his grandfather's body, who had been dead for 6 days before they knew. And I could go on and on. But those kinds of experiences take a toll. And I got sick. When I was 42, I developed adult onset anorexia. And I was sick enough that I was starting to have heart and liver failure, and I was hospitalized for 5.5 weeks. And with anorexia, it on average takes 7 years to recover. And honestly, people are always in recovery. And so I was on disability for a while. It was hard. I mean, that's what it was. It was hard. But I can tell you now that it has been also the greatest gift, because all of the kinds of stereotypes that I had about mental health issues versus physical health issues, it's gone, because I have had my own experience and my eyes have really been opened. And I can't tell you how many people that I know, how many people are my friends who have not only eating disorders, but depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. And it's an important part of who I am also. That really low place where I was has given me just so much more empathy and understanding for people. And the really strange thing about coming to the terraces, so Kate had asked me, well, how'd you end up here? And the answer is, I don't really know that either. I had been at NAMI for 7 years, and I decided.
Not in case somebody doesn't know what NAMI is.
NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And I had been there for 7 years. I worked primarily with overseeing a mentor program. So we were providing mentors for people coming out of psych hospitalizations. And then more recently, I was doing work with faith communities, training them about mental health. But I decided that I'd like to have one more chapter in my professional career. And I had seen this job posting for the terraces, but this was a long time ago. And so I had filled out that one application and I didn't hear anything for months. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, I got this call from Sherelle Shippen, and she is the human good person who oversees all the spiritual care directors. And what they were really interested in was that I had this spiritual background, but that I also had a mental health background, because the reality is at every stage of life, there are struggles. Life is hard, and to be able to be open with each other and support each other, whatever we need as we are dealing with things. And so, this illness that I had, those really dark days that I had, it prepared me for other things. And I'm grateful for that.
How your husband must have had a difficult time during that.
It was, he and my daughter are why I got better, or how I got better. It was very hard. I mean, I told you initially, Scott's an engineer. And so dealing with something that is so complicated, like anorexia, but he did amazing, and he stood by me. And part of how I think I began to get better is we got a tandem bicycle and started riding that, and we still ride it every weekend. And it was a way to be together, to be outside, and for me to physically work through things and get stronger and build muscle mass.
And this was in your overalls?
I do not wear my overalls on my bicycle.
Okay.
No, I do not.
Let's see, what else? Any mentors that you can think of?
Yeah, a lot. I mentioned my grandmother. My dad, I was very, very close to my dad. And most recently, a man named Stephen Pocklington. He is someone who has a mental health history himself, very, very wise. And he said this one sentence that I will spend the rest of my life just focusing on. And the sentence is, human beings aren't problems to be solved, they're mysteries to be honored. Human beings aren't problems to be solved, they're mysteries to be honored. And I think sometimes when we see other people having trouble, we want to jump in and fix them, point to exactly what's wrong. And the idea is to honor who people are, where they are.
And it seems like you know just about everybody here, not quite everybody. But
No, I don't know everyone for
No.
sure.
but if you look around in the audience, I'm sure that there are many here who know who you are. Is there anything else we've left out?
Well, is it okay to ask people to ask
Oh, sure,
questions? Because
yeah.
just to have a dialogue, if I'd like to know what you want to know. Angela, yeah.
At the international week that we celebrate here, you should wear your overalls for that.
Okay, I'm trying to connect the dots with, that's your grandpa. Yeah, there. All right. International. I hadn't thought about it that way, but okay. Yeah, Frank? Where do I want to be in 10 years? That's such a good question. I want to be in national parks. We're building this camper so that we can spend as much time as possible in national parks.
That's just on vacation, though. You'll still be here, right?
In 10 years, I'll be 70. Well, I'm 59 right now. I turned 60 in February. Yeah. But I want to be in national parks. We just adopted a puppy. I want my puppy to be trained by then. Carol Frank, many of you know, a resident here, her daughter Debbie connected us with our puppy. So I'm really grateful to her for that. And I want to be with my grandchildren, obviously. But Scott, my husband, has said something that has really stuck with me, is that he and I need to have our own life and not just totally enter into our grandchildren's lives. And so we're trying to find that balance. He did, yes. Wherever I went. And in the United Methodist Church, the bishop sends you. You don't candidate like you do in the Presbyterian Church. So that's a complicated thing for a married couple where one person is doing something different, but we made it work. Yeah.
Working here in Paris, is that what brought you to California? Have you been here before?
So I've lived in California for 15 years. What actually brought us here was Scott's brother, Tom, started a solar company, Regrid Solar. And he brought Scott to do engineering with that. So we moved. And since then, Scott and Tom, the engineering company is doing large scale solar design, but they also have their research arm, which is what Scott's doing. And he is developing car charging, electric vehicle charging directly from solar. So not going through the grid, but direct. And there's a lot of applications for this. School buses, for example, electric school buses are perfect because what are they doing? They're sitting most of the day. So if you have a canopy of solar panels, you plug the buses in, then they're ready to go when school is over. Also farm tractors, they've been doing some work with some vineyards to charge those electric tractors as well. But that's what brought us here. Yeah, other questions? What kind of puppy? Thank you for asking about the puppy. So Emmy's father was a Labrador Retriever and her mother was a Great Pyrenees. Yeah. So right now she is pretty small. The vet actually doesn't think she's going to be over 50 pounds. But Great Pyrenees are sheepdogs, right? And so she already is guarding the perimeter. We have a very small yard and she goes around the perimeter to make sure everything's okay.
Where is your home?
Where?
Where?
In San Jose. We live in Willow Glen. What part? I live on Willow Glen Way, not far from the thrift box. I've been to the thrift box many times. Free Union, Virginia.
I know, but what was it? There was a city, there was the tavern town.
Mickey Tavern.
So was that a tavern?
It was a tavern. It was in the other part of the county, though. It was literally so stagecoaches and everything. And by the time my great grandparents were living there, it was falling apart. And so again, they lived there, but then they got this offer and then they moved it to the other part of the county. Yeah. Yeah.
So on International Day, you'll be in overalls and you'll have your puppy.
Well, International Day, the puppy may not be have her manners yet, so I can't promise the puppy, but I can promise the overalls. Halloween for overalls. I could be a scarecrow. Perfect.
Or a clown. Yeah.
I can be a clown. Yes, Frank.
Have you done any writing?
Have I done any writing? So that is such a good question, Frank. So I am more of a writer than a speaker, honestly, and I have done a lot of writing. And I don't really have anything. I don't know what I would share with you. I can look at what I've written and see, but yes, I've done a lot of writing.
I've heard of the other services that you've done, and it's the things that you say are phenomenal. And you need to put them in a book. Explain why you said that maybe, but just very meaningful.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
And Frank had another question.
Yes, Frank.
Have a follow-up discussion like this. The vision you had, the book to us, the invitation.
Well, thank you. That's very, very kind. I will tell you that some of the writing I've done, it hasn't just been theological or autobiographical. I wrote a mystery too, and this is true story. If you really want me to get started talking about things from ministry, ask me about weddings that I've done. But I had a wedding where the maid of honor was the bride's birth mother, but nobody else knew it except the bride and the birth mother and me. And so I wrote this mystery where it all hinged on the maid of honor being the birth mother. Anyway, that's probably not what you want to read. I had another wedding. This was at Christmas time, and the United Methodist Church I served in Ames was a Gothic sanctuary, had big, huge ceilings, and we had a 20-foot Christmas tree, giant Christmas tree. And people in the church had made chrismons. Do you know what they are? With styrofoam and glitter and all of this. I came in for the wedding, and right beforehand, and the Christmas tree was gone, the 20-foot Christmas tree. So I went and found the bride and groom, and I was like, where is the Christmas tree? Well, we decided it wouldn't be good for the pictures. So they were like the Grinch. They stuffed it out of a door of the church. And when I found it, it was all limp on its side and all the chrismons were broken, and I had to do their wedding in 15 minutes. I was so mad at them. But anyway, this was the same wedding where the bride's mother wanted to be a part of the premarital counseling. And when I told her she couldn't, she banged on the piano that was outside my door. It was not a...
She didn't bang on you anyway.
She didn't
so-
bang on me. Yeah. Anyway, I have to stop because I have 100 wedding stories.
Oh, don't stop.
Yeah. Other questions about anything?
Okay. All right. I wish I could hear more stories, but
More stories?
yeah, well, that you've written.
Oh, more that, oh, I will figure out what I have that might be appropriate.
It means some are not.
Remember, I told you about my family before at the beginning.
Okay, there is a question back there.
Yes, Margaret. My husband does run marathons. Yes. So he and our daughter ran the Twin Cities Marathon, and then they ran along Lake Superior, the marathon in Duluth. And Scott thought he was going to run in Tahoe next month, but we got a puppy.
Yeah, you were supposed to bring pictures of the marathon.
Yeah, I just decided not to bring pictures, but
Okay.
I'm happy to show you pictures on my phone,
Okay.
whatever. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, thank you. I told you this would be very colorful.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you. And thank you for listening. Yes,
Yeah.
Jan. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, well, thank you all for coming.
Wait, Sharon has a question.
Oh. Yeah.
So Sharon's question is the non-denominational or the interfaith way that we're trying to do things here, if that is consistent across all the human good communities. And I think the ideal is that it would be consistent. Different people are in different places and maybe growing in that way. But Human Good has said that they want the spiritual care directors to be interfaith so that anybody could walk into a service and feel like they belong. Right now, the way things are working here, there are 2 clergy people who've been coming for many years, who come the first 2 Sundays of the month, and they are doing Christian services. And then I'm here the 3rd and 4th Sundays, and we're doing interfaith services then.
Which is next Sunday.
Yes, this Sunday. Yes. Yes, Frank. So I have not read that particular book. I think that there's a lot to be said about comparative religions. So I think it's something we all need to be educated on and open to with each other. And I'm glad. Comparative, what did you say the exact title was? Comparative religions, yeah. So Frank and I've had some wonderful conversations. He's doing a lot of reading and thinking about things spiritual. So thank you for that, Frank. Yeah.
You know, when Cindy first came, she was here a couple of weeks and I had gotten to know her a little bit. I sent an email to Bradley saying, here is a keeper. And I think you would all agree. I mean, it's partly because she is non-denominational. She is available to everybody. So, thank you. Glad you're here.
Thank you.